Welcome back, friend, and today I am proud to bring you the first of 2 episodes on the National Museum of China that is located in the heart of the capital, Beijing. Just by the name alone, National Museum of China should give us a sense of this institution's importance. And I will be showing you over the course of these 2 episodes each of the 12 national treasures that are stored inside. The National Museum is located in the middle of Beijing, right next to the Forbidden City on the Street of Eternal Peace. The building itself once housed 2 separate museums that were merged in 2003 to form the National Museum we see today. And this year marks its 20th anniversary. The building itself is also monumental. Completed in 1959 to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Its large facade is foreboding of how cavernous this place will be. Let's go inside and take a look. After a short wait in line, I enter the main hall of the National Museum and I'm immediately awed by its size. There are dozens of exhibition halls here that display everything from ancient relics to the modern post-1949 story. But today, we're going inside the Ancient China Hall that houses some of the most priceless national treasures found anywhere in the country. And before I go in, just to give you a sense of the size of this place, on the day I visited, there's an exhibit on the Chinese space program, and the building is so large that even the lobby can hold an entire exhibit by itself. The Ancient China Permanent Exhibit holds national treasures from every era of Chinese history, beginning from the Neolithic periods up to the end of the Qing dynasty, the very last dynasty in Chinese history. We begin with the first 4 artifacts from a prehistoric era of human civilization that allows us to understand the sophistication of our early ancestors. During this era of hunter-gatherers, there were no writing that we can find any archaeological traces of today. And we're still unsure of whether they communicated via hand gestures or primitive languages. Therefore, these artifacts are the only window we have into their way of life. This first piece is from an estimated period of 5,000 to 8,000 years ago and shows us that hunter-gatherers, after mastering fire, began to mold clay into hardened objects that can be used in daily life. This pottery container is shaped like an eagle, and the level of detail from its beak, eyes, and overall shape is simply marvelous for how old it is. Which brings us to the second object from the same time period, one of the most famous artifacts stored here and printed in school textbooks, the painted pottery basin. On it are 2 fishes and 2 human faces with additional fishes attached to their ears. Both of these objects were found in present-day interior China in Shanxi province, known to the world today for its famous terracotta warriors protecting the tomb of China's first emperor. But did you know it is actually one of the many provinces that the Yellow River traverses through? Perhaps the fish depicted here prove that early tribes relied on fishing from the Yellow River for their sustenance. The third object is from the same tribe, and as if to reinforce to me that we have yet to enter the Bronze Age, it's again made out of pottery and also 5,000 to 8,000 years old. But this time discovered in another part of the Yellow River further downstream in present-day Henan province. And on it, I find not only fish, a stork bird, but for the first time, a human-created weapon, stone axe, is also painted on the pottery jar. The last piece is very different from the first three. A green jade dragon from about 100 to 300 years apart from the first tribe, found in present-day Inner Mongolia, way up in northern China. That our ancestors from this era of pre-organized society were able to make jade, a naturally hard stone, into such an intricately carved object means they had equally hardened tools and speaks to their tremendous ingenuity. And the fact that this piece depicts a dragon only adds to its importance, as the Chinese people is mystically said to be descended from the dragon. These 4 pieces are among the many other national treasure level pieces found in these sites. And while they are the best representatives of our ancestors' intellect, the other objects on display are no slouch either, and tell a story of a people that made the most of the environment they were born into and learned to coexist with nature. As I walk into the next stage of the exhibit, we now move from Neolithic hunter-gatherer tribes into the first organized large societies, recorded as what we now call dynasties, that started with the Xia dynasty over 4,000 years ago. And it's in this room I will begin to see evidence of a flourishing Bronze Age Middle Kingdom as crafters began to mold bronze into magnificent shapes for royal courts. You see this large crowd gathered around that glass case? Well, inside sits perhaps the most historically significant artifact in the entire National Museum, the Homuwu bronze ding built over 3,100 years ago during the Shang Dynasty and unearthed in 1939 in the city of Anyang. During episodes 7 and 8 on my channel, I visited the very site of the Shang king and queen tombs, including the very burial pit this national treasure was discovered in. And in that museum sits an exact 1-to-1 replica, as the original sits before our eyes here in the National Museum. The Homuwu Ding is the largest bronze artifact ever discovered in China. In fact, it's so large and heavy that during the 1949 Nationalist Forces retreat to Taiwan, military personnel attempted to place the Homuwu into an Air Force plane, and they failed because it was so heavy. So they simply decided to leave it on the airport runway, where it was then transported to the Nanjing Museum. It is a large rectangular ding, which means ceremonial vessel, commissioned by a Shang Dynasty king who held the reign for 7 years in order to commemorate his mother. And the ding weighs exactly 1,836 pounds. For a civilization over 3,000 years ago, without the aid of any modern power tools, to be able to make a bronze object of this size, I can only say that this artifact rightfully sits in the capital Beijing, here in the National Museum, because it showcases the best of this ancient land to the rest of the world. The Homu Wu is not the only marker of how advanced Bronze Age artisans had become. In fact, its large size makes it an exception rather than the norm. In this section of the exhibit, I find numerous other fine-crafted bronze objects of what I would call normal sizes that more closely align with daily life. Some were used to store grain and alcohol, but each is intricately carved to reflect the stature of their owners. This brings us to the last national treasure of this episode, a tremendous bronze rectangular basin awarded by the 11th king of the Zhou dynasty, a king named Zhou Xuan, some 2,700 years ago, to his military general. The most prominent aspect of this object are the 8 columns of 111 early Chinese letters that commemorate the general's prowess in achieving a military victory over the Zhou enemies. Today, both the general and the king are long gone, but their achievements live on here in the National Museum. I have now found and shown you 6 of the 12 national treasure objects stored here in the National Museum in the capital Beijing. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button and subscribe so we can stay in touch for more episodes to come. And on the next one, I uncovered the remaining 6 objects here in the National Museum, beginning with relics from a mysterious civilization never mentioned in any historical text, to then the only imperial coronet for an empress to be ever unearthed in Chinese history. I'll see you on the next one.